Lesson 6-7, Solve Inequalities Using the Distributive Property. In this lesson, you're going to learn how to solve inequalities that require multiple steps. So when you think about solving an inequality, you're going to go back and use the same strategies that you used when you solved multiple step equations. Let's now take a look at example 1. Solve inequalities using the distributive property. Gabriella likes to make people guess her age. She gives them this clue. Add 13 to the product of 3 and the sum of my age in 2, and you get a number greater than my height in inches. What are possible ages for Gabriella? Graph the solution. So what you notice here is that she gives you the clues that tell you how to set up the inequality. First, she says add 13 to the product of 3 and the sum of her age in 2. So the first thing that we're going to do is we're going to look at adding the 13 to a product. Okay, the product is this part right here, which is the sum of her age in 2, x plus 2, multiplied by 3. And it tells us that we're going to get a number greater than her height in inches. So the value of the left side of that inequality is greater than her height. And her height, according to the picture, is 55 inches. Now to solve this inequality, you're going to do the same steps that you've been doing when you solved equations that had the distributive property. Okay, so to solve this inequality, you're going to first use that distributive property. So 3 times x and 3 times 2. So 3 times x plus 3 times the 2. Plus you have the 13 added on there, and that is greater than 55. So the distributive property gives you the 3x plus 6 that you see right there. But then you also have to add 13. So the 6 and the 13 together is what makes the 19. And then you're going to solve that two-step inequality. So 3x plus 19 is greater than 55. Take away the 19 from both sides. So 3x is greater than 36. And then you're going to divide both sides by 3. So x is greater than 12 according to this inequality. So what that tells us is Gabriella is more than 12 years old. Possible ages for her, anything bigger than 12. So there you see an open circle there, and it is shaded to the right to indicate that her age is greater than that value. Now take a look at the try it. See if you can set up the try it question here, and then come back and check the setup before you go on to solve it. According to the try it, it says twice, which means to do something 2 times. Okay? Twice the difference means subtract, of Felipe's age and 4. So what we're subtracting is f minus 4. And we're going to do that twice. So you'll notice here that in your inequality, you've got parentheses. And then it says is at least 2. So what that means is 2 or more. 2 is the smallest number. It could be bigger. What are the possible values for Felipe's age? Graph the solution. So the inequality we're solving here is 2 times the quantity f minus 4, and that's greater than or equal to 2. So distributive property says 2 times f minus 2 times 4 is greater than or equal to 2. We're going to have 2f minus 8 is greater than or equal to 2. So that's what goes right here in this box, 2f minus 8. And then we're going to solve the inequality. We're going to add 8 to both sides. And you get 2f is greater than or equal to 10. Now we're going to solve for f by dividing both sides of that inequality by 2. So f is greater than or equal to 5. What that means on the graph is that we're going to put a solid dot on the 5, and greater than means anything bigger then that will work as part of your solution. So F could be any number, Felipe's age could be any number bigger than or equal to 5. Now look at example 2. We're going to solve a more complex inequality where we not only have the distributive property, but we also have an extra term added on the left side, and then on the right side we only have a single term. So when we are solving this one, we're going to first remember to use that distributive property right here. So we're going to distribute first that -3 times the x plus, we're going to do that -3 times the 4. Then we also see that it's adding 3 before we see the greater than or equal to sign and the 9. So we're going to simplify that piece of it to be equal to -3x plus -12 plus 3 is greater than or equal to 9. Now I'm going to combine my like terms. So I notice here that I have two terms that are just numbers and I can put them together. So that -3x plus now -9 is greater than or equal to 9. So -12 plus 3 is the -9. Now remember, adding a negative is the same as subtraction. So you might see it written as subtracting 9. And that means we're going to add 9 to both sides as we solve. So -3x is going to be greater than or equal to 18. And then we're going to divide by -3. Now, don't forget when you divide by that -3 that you have to take your inequality sign and it gets reversed because you divided by a negative number. So x must be less than or equal to -6. On the graph, you should see a solid dot on the -6, and less than means shade going to the left. All the numbers smaller than -6. Okay, last but not least, take a look at example 3. We're going to be solving inequalities by combining like terms, and then go ahead with your multiple steps. So when you look at number 3, you'll notice that the similar process is done as what you saw in example 2. If you have any questions about what was done in example 3, come see me so that I can help you work through that. When you look down at the triads here, you'll notice that you have some pretty complex inequalities to solve. There are 2 triads there, and I'd like for you to try each of them. When you're done with the first one, come back and check your answer, and then we'll move on to the second one, and you can check your answer on that one as well. Okay, pause the video while you're trying those, and then come back and we'll check answers. Okay, go ahead and take a look at the solution here to the first inequality in the triad. You'll notice in this solution and set of work that the first thing that I did is I changed the subtraction sign between the -1 and the 6. I took this subtraction and changed it to adding the opposite. So I made that 6 a negative because when I distribute it, I'm distributing the negative sign with it. So as I distribute that -6 to the 6 and to the 2x, which you see here in the third step, I need to multiply both of those by a -6 before I combine my like terms. Okay, so -6 times 6 makes the -36, and I'm going to add that to a -1. And then -6 times 2x is what makes the -12x. Now you can combine your like terms. -1 plus -36 is a -37, plus the -12x, so I'm on this second to last line here, plus the -12x is less than 11. Okay, in order to get rid of that -37, we're going to add it to both sides. So now a -12x is going to be less than 48. And when I solve for x, I have to divide both sides by a -12. So what that tells me is that my inequality sign gets flipped around. And instead of a less than sign in my answer, it becomes a greater than sign. So the solution to the first inequality is x is greater than -4. So we're going to go onto the graph and we're going to put an open circle at the -4. And we want all the numbers that are bigger than -4. So that means I'm going to be shading going to the right. Now I want you to try the second inequality and then come back and we'll check that answer as well. All right, finally, let's take a look at the second try it here underneath example 3. This is a pretty long and complex inequality statement. You notice that there's lots of sign symbols in there, and we're going to just take this one step at a time. So hang out with me here while I go through my explanation. So here's my inequality and here's my solution. So the first thing that I did is I just recopied what they had. In the second line, you'll notice that I subtracted the 4 minus 6 in parentheses and got a -2. And I also took the 2 on the outside of the parentheses on the right side, and I distributed the 2 times the -t and the 2 times the 3. Okay? So in this third line is where I start combining things and putting together the pieces. All right, so I had 3 times a -2, which makes -6, plus 2 is greater than or equal to 2 times a -t makes -2t, 2 times 3 makes 6, right there, and then I have my 4. So I'm just simplifying smaller pieces at a time. I'm not trying to solve for t yet because I need to combine my like terms first. Now as I continue, I'm going to look at the left side. -6 plus 2 is -4. So the left side of my inequality now is just a single number, -4. On the right side of my inequality, I still have some like terms to put together. A +6 and 4 makes 10. So you see that there. Then what we're going to do is we're going to now focus on solving the inequality that says -4 is greater than or equal to -2t plus 10. And we're going to do that by taking away the 10 from both sides because I'm trying to isolate the variable, get that by itself. And I get -14 -14 is greater than or equal to -2t. In order to finish this, I'm going to divide both sides by -2, but you know what that means. That means my inequality sign gets flipped around. So on the left side, I have -14 divided by -2, which is a +7. And then my sign gets flipped now, so it's a less than or equal to sign. And then my variable t is on the right side. But what this statement really says is 7 is less than or equal to t. That's what this inequality answer says. But what we really want to know is, what does that say about t? Well, what it means is that t has to be greater than or equal to 7. If you're a little bit confused by that, take a look at the original inequality in our answer. And notice that the opening of that inequality sign is pointed towards the t, meaning the t number is the bigger number, and the pointy end of that inequality is pointed at the 7, which means the 7 is the smaller number. So when I flip it around so that I can see better with the t listed first, I still need that inequality to be facing the same direction on the t, which is a big opening toward the t, and the smaller end over here going toward the 7. So now as I put that on the graph, I'll notice up here in this big mess at the top of my screen that I need to count over 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So my 7 is right here, and it's a greater than or equal to, so it's going to be a filled in dot, a solid dot, and greater than means going to the right. So your job today is going to be to try some problems on your own. I'd like for you to start by trying questions 4, 5, and 6, and then we'll move on to some questions on the other pages to help see if you can better understand how to solve a multi-step inequality. When you have finished with questions 4, 5, and 6, come back here and check your answer. Okay, take a look at number 4. Pause the video while you check your work and your answer and your graph, and then you're ready to move on to number 5. Okay, go ahead and check your answer to number 5, the work and your graph. And pause the video while you do that, and then you're ready for number 6. Okay, and there's your work and your graph for number 6. Notice in the translation that you have the words 3 times the difference, which means you need to do the difference in parentheses. And the difference is Frederico's age and 4. So we're going to do 3 times that difference. That's what you see here, 3, and then times the difference. And then it says, comma, increased by 7, so that's the plus 7. And then we have greater than 37 as your inequality. Then you're going to simplify that by using your distributive property, 3 times f and 3 times 4. And simplify by combining your like terms. Negative 12 plus 7 is a negative 5. And then solving that accordingly like a 2-step equation. And what you end up with is f is greater than 14, which you can see there on the graph. Open circle at 14 and going in the greater than direction. Now I'd like for you to try questions 7 and 8, and then come back and check your answers for those. Go ahead and pause the video while you check your answer to number 7, and then when you're ready, go on to number 8. Okay, now take a look at your solution for number 8. Check your answers, pause the video while you do that, and then when you're ready, you'll be going on to the back page. Go ahead and try question 11. Okay, so pause the video and try question 11. And then when you're ready, replay the video and you'll look at and compare your solution to the one in the video and see if you have any additional questions. Okay, go ahead and check your answers as they pertain to question 11. And then you're ready to move on to question 14 and 15. For number 14, you're going to need to pause the video for probably an extended length of time so that you can check the work on both inequality number 1, that's the first one up here, and inequality number 2, which is down below, and check your work to see if you can follow how to solve both of those multi-step inequalities. And the question actually asks which of these inequalities has 5 as a solution. And it is inequality number 1 because z being greater than 3 means any number greater than 3, and 5 fits that description. Okay, so pause the video while you check your work or correct your work. And then when you're done, you're ready to move on to number 15. Start the video again when you're ready to check your answer to number 15. Now take a look at the solution for number 15. It's about a 5-step process to explain how you get to the answer. So take a look at those steps. Okay, follow along, check your answer and your work. Make corrections as needed. Okay, and pause the video while you do that. When you finish with number 15, you're ready to move on to your work.